Hello, I'm not dead. And what better way to celebrate that than by talking about things that might be? Hi, I'm Elena, and I am back from a much-needed hiatus. Good gravy, the internet is weird. It's spooky season, which is basically my favorite time of the year because suddenly me wearing black all the time is not scary, but just an aesthetic. Plus, there's a massive excuse to wear fun costumes and eat candy, and also listen to all those horror stories that we know everyone likes. Most people. But if the hype is anything to go on, people like hearing spooky stories. I know I do. So today we will be talking about the 5 times that I really saw some weird things. There have been other times, like I've seen a lot of things move around in my house that I can't explain. And I'm also pretty sure I saw aliens once, but those stories aren't nearly that exciting. I just saw lights. That's it. But there are 5 specific times that I want to share with you where I could not explain what I saw. So here we go. By the way, this is Christopher. He lives in this teacup. He loves his teacup. Yes, he is dead. Yes, this is taxidermy. I got him at the Strange and Unusual in Philadelphia. So there's a psychiatric hospital in my neighborhood, and honestly, it's not that scary just on its own. It's actually not that scary at all. There are some abandoned buildings, but it is still partially functional. So you've got newer buildings, the really old buildings, the boarded up buildings. Surprisingly, there aren't any ghost stories really about it, other than someone who knows a dog who has an owner who saw a shadowy figure somewhere. So yeah, that's not really a thing. However, I have encountered something that I can't explain. So I take a lot of walks around my neighborhood. I just walk, get fresh air, get some exercise, listen to music, and it's perfectly fine to just walk around the psychiatric hospital grounds. It's a public hospital. There are patients around, there are doctors around, but there's no danger. As long as you don't disturb anyone or cause any problems or try and break into buildings like people have done before, you're perfectly fine to just roam the grounds. So I was taking one of my normal walks where I just listen to my music and chill out, and I'm walking across this big open field, so nothing over top of me, nothing around me. It was kind of a dreary sort of day. Not raining, but very cloudy, very cold, so nobody was out and about. It was just me out in this big field. And I suddenly feel this push on my chest, like somebody went like that to me. And it didn't register for a moment. But then I stopped. I was like, wait, what? Am I okay? And I looked down, and there are these mud streaks on my jacket. Somebody had just gone with 3 fingers, 3 little mud streaks across my jacket. There were no trees overhead of me, so nothing could have fallen. It was mud, so it would have been down, but there weren't any other splashes on my jacket. Nothing happened where I was stepping in a puddle. I could not explain it. And I remember feeling just really uneasy, and obviously I left the grounds pretty quick after that, but I don't know. I got nothing. But that's really nothing. I didn't really see anything. Let's go to that next. This next story happened when I was maybe 15, 16, somewhere around there. I live in Maryland, and in Maryland we have a small town called Ellicott City, a small historic mill town. And up on the hill in Ellicott City, there is the Patapsco Female Institute, which was, in the 1800s, it was a fine finishing school for young ladies. So these very high society young women who were going to be educated in how to read Latin and how to serve tea and all that old-fashioned jazz before feminism. There's even this resident ghost at the Patapsco Female Institute. Now, The building isn't that creepy during the day. Like, it's honestly not scary at all. It's just this big, crumbling building that they've stabilized. The stabilization beams kind of kill any creepy vibe, but they do tell a ghost story at the Patapsco Female Institute if you go on one of the tours. They tell the story of Annie van der Lot. She was, in theory, a young woman who was at the school, and she was very well liked, very popular. But she would write to her parents how miserable she was. She didn't like the school. She was from the South, and Maryland at the time was not affected as much by global warming, so it was very cold in the fall. She didn't want to be there. She didn't like the school, and she begged for them to let her go home. They refused. And then in the winter, she caught cold and died of pneumonia. The story goes that she now haunts the grounds begging to go home. I want you to know that this story is absolute bullshit. There was never a record of an Annie van der Lot who went to the school. Like, I talked to people in the Ellicott City Historical Society, and there was never a record of an Annie van der Lot. There was a record of Annie van Zerlot, or like an A van Zerlot. We're not sure her first name, I think. But she didn't die at the school. Nobody ever died at that school. This was a high society, fully functioning school. Like, word would have gotten around if somebody died there. This was high society, big money people there, so no records of this ghost ever exist. This ghost. So, me being a 15-year-old edgelord, I wanted to jump the fence. My friend and I were in Ellicott City, and we were just wandering around. We were having our teenage freedom years. And I decide we should go up to the Patapsco Female Institute. It was not open for tours that day, and it was sunny. It was a nice day. I'm like, I'm gonna jump the fence. My friend had decided to wear white pants that day, so she did not jump the fence with me. Technically, we weren't even jumping the fence. I crawled under the fence, so I was crawling through mud. This is where black clothes come in handy. But I find an opening in the fence, my friend stays behind, I wiggle underneath the fence into the Patapsco Female Institute. As I said, it's really pretty grounds, it's nice. It's not creepy, it's a big crumbling building, but everything is bright and open and airy, and it's good fresh air. So I come around the corner, and I see this guy. I thought I'd been alone there, but I see this guy. He's wearing construction worker outfit, he's wearing a hard hat, and he's walking away from me, looking straight at me. He's walking away from me, looking straight at me. His head was on 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Thinking back on it now, this is actually a lot creepier than I remember it being, but at the time I don't remember being super freaked out or anything. I was just like, oh, I should probably go. So I turned around and I left. I went back under the fence and I told my friend what I'd just seen. She also believes in the unexplained, so she believed me. But when we got back to my house, we Googled Patapsco Female Institute construction worker ghost or something to that effect. And of course you get a zillion results for the non-existent Annie van der Lot. But we did find one hit for someone who saw a construction worker whose head was not on the correct direction. I think it was in the 90s they did do some extensive construction work to stabilize the building, but there weren't any reported deaths on the site, but yeah. That is creepier now that I think about it. I wasn't scared, but that's pretty creepy actually. This next story I actually have notes from because I was on study abroad and I kept journals during that time. So I have direct quotes and notes from this experience. 3 things to note about Finland before this story gets started in case you've never been to Finland or don't know Finnish culture. First thing, if you are under the age of 40 and you live in Helsinki, you speak English. For the most part, everyone in urban areas speaks English. This changes if you get into more rural areas or if the person is very old, as we will talk about later. We have another creepy story coming up from Finland. But for the most part, young people in urban areas speak English. Second, people don't talk to each other in Finland. For me, everyone was basically falling over themselves to ask me about the American election in 2016, but they didn't talk to each other. Before I went to Finland, people would warn me about, don't be offended if people don't talk to you. And they did talk to me, but there's no such thing as small talk. People don't talk to random strangers on the metro unless they're getting on the metro drunk. And the third thing to note is, unfortunately, there is a known issue in Finland with substance abuse and mental health issues, especially depression. So that is an unfortunate reality. From what I understand, mental health in Finland has gotten better over the last few years, but although there are still resources available, there is still a massive issue. So I was on the Helsinki metro. It was the day before Juhannus, and that's the Finnish midsummer holiday festival. So I was sitting there, the metro car was really crowded, people were packed in, everyone was out shopping, getting their alcohol, getting their food for Juhannus, and just general celebration stuff. And I was seated going from Rastila to center of Helsinki. And this guy, about a couple of stops into my ride, he sits down across from me. And let me try to describe this guy. He was dressed very cleanly, but he had matted hair and he had feathers in his hair. And he looked kind of on edge, like he was about ready to jump up and run out the metro as soon as possible. I don't know, he just gave off this really tense, kind of strange vibe. And about a stop later, he takes a pill bottle out of his pocket, opens it up, pours out like 8 or 9 pills or something, like just dumps it into his hand, pops them, then pulls out alcohol, like a bottle of beer or something from the side pocket of his backpack, and chugs it. So I'm sitting there thinking, holy smokes, did I just witness a suicide attempt? So I break the social norm and go over to this guy like, hey, are you okay? And he suddenly seems to realize what he looked like, because he's like, oh, no, I'm fine. So he says, don't worry, it's nothing bad, I just have to see some more things. And at this point I'm sitting there like, okay, he was definitely already high before he got on here, I just didn't notice, and yeah, that's weird. So I'm perfectly fine with the idea of not talking to this guy anymore, but he wants to continue this conversation. And he points to my shirt and he asks, is that Dante's Inferno? It was this shirt. You can't see it. Yeah, it's Hymns Tour of the Middle Ages. And I say, I don't really know. I was given this shirt by a friend because I like the band. And this guy, he's like, oh, okay. But he keeps talking. And he says, he's like, I've seen that stuff. And he says, once you have seen things like that, you can't unsee them. But sometimes you want to see them again, you know? Okay. Please stop talking to me. And like he's telling me things. I didn't write everything down, but he's telling me all this stuff about like demons and devils and heaven and hell. And at this point I'm just like, can I just get off the metro? So at my stop, I get up, but before I can leave, he says, take care, Lana. Keep your eyes open for the devils. You'll see so much more. Lana is basically the Finnish equivalent to Elena. And I've had Finnish friends of mine, call me Lana as kind of a pet Finnish name. I wasn't wearing any kind of identifier. I didn't have like a name tag from anything. I didn't have any ID out throughout this metro ride. He knew my name. I had never seen this guy before. and he knew my name. So I get off the train pretty rattled, and I go about my day, and I never see him again. I had never seen him before, and I never see him again. I don't know who he was or what he was, but every weird vibe I got off of him was... I don't know. These last two stories, you should look this phenomenon up. If you have never heard of the BlackEyed Children, they are these creepy little kids with fully black eyes, like sclera, pupil, iris, everything completely black. They're known to want to come into your house. There's a whole Wikipedia page on them. I will link that in the description below, but there are a lot of stories of people who encounter the BlackEyed Children. The kids want to come into their house or enter their car or talk to them, and these people feel this overwhelming sense of dread when they meet these kids. It's like little demon children. So I have seen them. Twice. The second time I saw them was the less creepy, so I'll tell that one first. It was less of a threatening situation, but I was just walking around my neighborhood. As I said earlier, I just like taking walks. I like listening to music, and I was just out as normal. Nothing seemed weird. The weather was nice. The sun was out. It was great. And I walk my usual route. I have a route that I take when I'm walking up this street, down that street. Everything was fine. And as I'm walking, I suddenly feel like someone is watching me. And I turn around, and there are these two kids just standing there staring at me. And their eyes are completely black. I'm just there like, fuck. They don't say anything, but there's this little boy, it's a little boy and a little girl. And they have dark hair and dark eyes. And the little boy just kind of waves at me. And I don't wave back. I just keep walking. And then they follow me. And I turn around and I tell them, go home. And I start walking even faster. They didn't follow me beyond that, but I kept walking. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. I actually tweeted about this, and one of the people I follow on Twitter who follows me, they were like, did you see this? And sent me a link to the Wikipedia page for BlackEyed Children. And I'm like, yeah. And they said, don't let them into your house. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. I'm not letting them into my house. At this rate, I'm about to like head off to rural Kazakhstan. It's like, I'm not letting them anywhere. I'm not dealing with them. No. Thankfully, I have never seen these kids again, but it did make me change my walk route for a while. Yeah, that was great. The first time I ever saw a black-eyed child is probably the creepiest situation I've ever been in my life. It freaks me out just thinking about it right now. So, I studied abroad in 2016, and this was in February when I saw this little boy. So I had taken a brief trip up to Kite, Finland, the home of, like, the birthplace of the band Nightwish. I am a Nightwish fan. I love Nightwish. It's great. The town is really, really lovely. In sunlight in the day. When you are not a foreigner, in a rural town where not everyone speaks English, and your only point of contact is one guy who speaks English, and you're staying in a kansanopisto. It's like a folk high school where they teach Finnish people about Finnish culture and non-Finnish people about Finnish culture. I don't know how to explain it. There's not much of an equivalent in the US, so I don't know. But so I took a trip up to Kite, Finland. It's like about 40 kilometers from the Russian border. It's very, very cold. It gets very dark in the winter. It's February. I'm freezing my butt off. I got put in the Kanzanopisto in the dormitory at the folk high school. I'm staying there alone, except for like 2 refugees who are also staying there, because Finland has a population of refugees, and I mean, they didn't talk to me. I didn't talk to them. They were just there. But I'm sitting in my room, and I suddenly feel this like urge to look outside. And I mean, it's quite lovely outside. It's dark, but there's snow on the ground. There are some warm lamplights outside because it was dark, like evening dark at about 10 a.m. It was barely light at noon. It got pretty much pitch black at 4 in the afternoon. So it's been dark for a while, and obviously Finland has adapted with a lot of lamplight. But like, it looks quite pretty outside. But I just get this urge to look outside, and he's standing there in the courtyard. And he's just looking at me. So this kid, he had blonde hair, and he was dressed like in like Sami traditional clothing. I'll insert a picture right here for reference. And like the building isn't that tall. I was on the 2nd floor, but even from there, like the light hit his face, and I can see that his eyes were completely black, and it just sent this chill through me. And he was just standing there smiling at me. And just like with the little boy in my neighborhood, he just kind of waves at me. And I step back from the window. I close the curtains. And then a minute later, I hear this little knock on the front door. I do not go answer that. And I am so glad that neither of the refugees answered that. There was nobody else on site. It was just me and a couple of the 2 refugees, and like everyone else who managed the folk high school, they had gone home. It wasn't like they had to stay on site. I guess. I think there's an apartment on site, but nobody answered the door is the point. And I am so glad they didn't, because that was the most sleepless night I've ever had in my life. I cannot convey how creepy it was. It was just black, and this feeling of dread that goes through you. Like, you think, like, oh, so his eyes were black, whatever. No, it comes with a feeling when you've seen him. And, like, the fact that this little kid was out of place, like, it's like, it didn't make any sense for, like, he was, like, 8, looked to be about 8, wandering around the courtyard, like 6 to 8 years old, wandering around the courtyard at night. See, now I've put myself into a very scared funk, and I'm just sitting here clutching my duck tea. He's so cute, though. So yeah, those are the times I've encountered some really creepy stuff. Happy Halloween. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen something. Let me know your creepiest story that's happened to you or a friend of yours, and yeah, like, subscribe for more content. Hopefully not like this, because I really don't want to see anything like that kid again. Yeah, like, subscribe, check out my social media, and I'll see you in the next video.